Hi everyone, I'm Gaby Mendez. I'm here at the Zoom book launch party for Felony Melanie in Pageant Pandemonium. I'm joined by authors Kris Bock and Doug Eboch. This is a prequel novel to Sweet Home Alabama. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Great.
So guys, why don't you tell us about the book?
So as you said, it's a prequel to Sweet Home Alabama. So it's set when the characters are teenagers. It follows Melanie and Jake when they are teenagers in Pigeon Creek, Alabama. And Melanie's the troublemaker who got her nickname Felony Melanie. And the story of the book centers on Melanie getting into a beauty pageant in Mobile, Alabama, the big city. So she gets to go to the big city and compete for a scholarship, which could help her get out of town. And Jake goes along with her to cheer her on, and also just to kind of see the big city and hang out with his girlfriend, and their friends join in. But they start to realize along the way that that someone is trying to sabotage the pageant. So Jake and the gang set about trying to figure out who's sabotaging the pageant, while Melanie's competing against the debutantes to try to win and to see if they can get the scholarship.
That sounds awesome. You two are brother and sister. How was it working together?
Since we're both writers, every time we get together for family visits, we wind up talking writing nonstop. But this is the first chance we've had to work together on a big project like this. We started by brainstorming ideas for the series as a whole because we wanted to make sure that we could sustain it through several books. And then we brainstormed ideas for this particular book. We started with the writing by Doug doing the first draft of the opening chapters, focusing on action and dialogue, since those are his strengths as a scriptwriter. He sent the chapters to me, and I fleshed them out, adding setting details and characters' thoughts and reactions, basically making them read more like a novel. Later on, we switched up a bit and tried something different. The story follows Jake and Melanie in alternating chapters, so it was easy to say that I would write the chapters from Melanie's point of view and Doug would write the chapters from Jake's point of view, as their stories run in parallel through the middle of the novel. Then we switched and made sure that everything matched up properly and went back and forth several times. So we have each been through every chapter multiple times, and I'm confident that the end result is such that readers won't have any idea who wrote a particular sentence. So it was surprisingly easy and a lot of fun, and I'm already looking forward to working on the next one together.
So cute. I love that. So guys, if you have any questions for Doug or Kris, put them on the Facebook feed. Now we're going to start a live reading of the book. Doug will get a little help from Lana and Alicia Wheeler. Hi, guys.
All right, so we have Lana and Alicia. So this is going to be, we're going to read a section from chapter 3 of the book. This is after Melanie is waking up the morning after an evening of partying. And I'll be reading the narration part of the book. Alicia will read Melanie, and Lana will read Melanie's mom, Pearl. So let's begin.
Up and at 'em.
Melanie's mama threw open the curtains, sending a flood of sunlight into the room. Melanie moaned as the sunlight stabbed right through her eyelids into her brain. She shaded her eyes and squinted at the clock. The numbers danced and blurred. She might still be drunk. Finally, she made out the time, 9 in the morning. Was this part of her mama's revenge? Her mama bumped the bed with her hip, rocking it, and Melanie's head spun.
Let's go. We got to get you cleaned up for the pageant, and the way you look, that's going to take some time.
The pageant, right. Today was a Pigeon Creek Princess pageant.
I thought I was grounded.
You are, except for school and pageants. Those are important to your future. Now get in the shower. I'll pack up your stuff.
Mama opened the closet and pulled out Melanie's fancy pink gown with the big ruffly skirt and poofy shoulders.
Mama, that dress is so old-fashioned. Can I wear the new one I made?
You mean that plain off-the-shoulder one?
It's not plain, it's sleek. You know, modern. It's the kind that's in all the fashion magazines now.
Well, that modern look may win pageants up in New York or Chicago, but Southern judges are traditional. You want to win, don't you?
Melanie rolled onto her side. The bed bobbed and pitched like a leaky rowboat on a windy lake.
I want to sleep.
Lordy, I swear, girl, you're going to end up spending your whole life working down at the tire factory if you don't shape up. You know, the winner of today's pageant gets to compete in the Miss Alabama Princess Pageant Southern Regional.
Oh, right. The Pigeon Creek Princess Pageant was not only the most important local pageant of the year, it was a qualifier for the regional pageant over in Mobile.
First prize at the regional pageant includes a big old scholarship.
The scholarship wasn't as tempting to Melanie as her mother probably hoped, but it would be so cool to go to Mobile, hang out in the big city. She had to get up. This was just a little hangover. It wouldn't be the first time she'd plowed through one of those. She tried to sit up. The room spun. She fell back onto the bed.
I don't feel so good, Mama.
I shouldn't wonder. You hear about the judges for the regional pageant?
What about them?
Well, one is a former Miss America, and one is the Miss Alabama Princess from a few years back.
No surprise there.
There's a professional dancer and a cheerleading coach.
Uh-huh.
And one man is a fashion designer from New York City.
For a moment, Melanie didn't move. Then she pushed herself up to sitting and squinted at her mama.
For real?
It's in the brochure, which you'd know if you bothered to read. Now get your lazy biscuits out of the bed and into that shower. I'll make hotcakes for breakfast. Not that you deserve any after what you pulled last night.
A real fashion designer from the biggest, most glamorous city in America. Melanie had never met anyone who actually designed clothes before. Someone who knew the latest trends before they hit the streets of New York, years before cheap knockoff versions made it to Pigeon Creek. Better than that, he actually created the trends. She could meet a real live designer, if she got to Mobile, if she won the pageant. Melanie had to rally. She forced herself out of bed with one big heave, stumbled to the bathroom. Her teeth felt fuzzy as peach skin. Her eyes were red vein marbles in sooty sockets, and her tangled hair could be hiding any number of birds' nests. She stuck out her tongue at her reflection, some beauty queen. No doubt about it, the bill from yesterday had come due. Melanie gathered her energy to pay the cost of that bill. She turned on the shower and dove in with a yelp. By the time the water warmed up, maybe she'd be awake. So we'll continue with that reading a bit later in the broadcast.
Okay, so now we'll be joined by some special guests. We have actor Courtney Gains, who played Wade in the movie, and actor Fleet Cooper, who played Clinton. If anybody has questions for them, put them in the Facebook comments and we'll get to them later.
Hey,
Hi,
hey.
guys. So,
Hey, how's it going?
hi, what fun memories do you have from filming the movie?
Well, for me, one of the cool things was I got to work with Patrick Dempsey again because we did Can't Buy Me Love together. And then Josh Lucas, I knew Josh, I trained him as an actor up in Oregon years before he became huge. So it was like old home week for me. So it's pretty cool.
That's really crazy. I love that.
Yeah, it was a blast. It was probably my first major picture that I'd ever worked on. I'd worked on a couple of smaller pictures before then, and there were a couple of other local actors who were from that show into that also played in this show as well. And it came at the right time, and ironically enough, a lot of us had been going through a lot of the same things that the main characters were going through too. Just got out of a relationship, just getting a divorce, one of us had something to cling on to. So it was very serendipitous.
So I was so impressed with Fleet as a local hire that we became friends, and I convinced him to come out to LA for a while, which was I put him in everything, any little film I produced or anything else, and I'm glad he's on the show with me here. This is great.
Yeah, he was very generous out in LA. He was one of the two people I knew at the time. He showed me around, and I believe Jean Smart was the other one I knew from the show, and she gave me a couple odd jobs while I got myself settled in. But we're back in Atlanta as well. I think this is a great. It's like right time, the right place to be, in my opinion. There's so many exciting projects happening right here, and I'm just glad to see that the Courtney as well has decided to come on this side as well, and popping on by and making more waves again in the projects here.
Yep.
That's great. So I was wondering, what do you guys think your characters were like in high school?
So I'll go first if it'll pop on me. The screen's not popping onto me for some reason, but you'll hear my voice. I think my character was definitely hanging out with the boys, partying up on the water tower, no doubt about that. But I think he was also like an ROTC and played baseball and probably joined the military when he got out of school. And then after that's when he became a sheriff. That's my guess.
I love that you know the whole story. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What about you?
I was pretty much a good old boy. There was a couple of scenes that got cut from the film for time and whatnot. We never got to shoot them, but there were a couple of instances where he had a little bit too much to drink and made a little bit of an ass out of himself in front of Melanie and the others. So that it kind of told me that just another good old boy in the group that ran along with the pack.
Okay, I can totally see that. So what are you guys up to now? You have anything fun to tell us about?
At the end of the year, I finished a movie called Hellblazer with Bruce Dern. Had a couple projects lined up to do, but of course, we're all on lockdown, so waiting to hear when those are going to start up. And then I directed a little short film called Symptoms that's been getting in festivals. It's just gotten its 15th festival, and you can see it if anybody's interested in 5 minutes of their life. They can see it on Real Cinema Fest. It's playing for 2 weeks on there right now. So it's a romantic comedy actually. So that's keeping in step with this.
Nice. Yeah, I've been pretty much keeping busy working with audiobooks in town. Mostly as a narrator and top director for a place called Listen Up Audiobooks. I just finished one I'm really proud of, a biography on Dave Brubeck, which is just fascinating, especially learning a lot about jazz. So it was it was really much a labor of love. In addition to working out with still auditioning for films and TV as well. Did a small bit in Billy Lynn's Long Walk Home, which got just like in Sweet Home for time, just got getting cut down to something a little bit more, so that there is more to the plot with the main characters. But we're just having a blast here in Atlanta. Support a young actor named Maximus Thor, who's got his own YouTube channel, and an up and coming actor as well, and just having a blast with the People Store.
Well, that's great to hear that you guys are keeping busy, especially now that we're all on lockdown. So I think, Kris, you're supposed to tell me if there's any Facebook questions to get to.
So far, assuming that I am following correctly on my phone, there are people joining on Facebook, but I don't see any questions yet. So move on.
Okay.
Maybe I can ask the guys a question.
Yeah.
Like doing a lot of research on this, the one thing I spent a lot of time in Alabama, and one of the biggest things I researched was eating stuff, because that's my favorite kind of research. So I'm curious, what are you guys' favorite Southern food?
Simple for me, shrimp and grits.
I like the Vidalia onions it's actually Southern Georgia, but there've been a couple of times where I had a chance to go to Southern Alabama on the way into Pensacola. You go to like real rural Southern Alabama, and I kind of guessed that this is probably where the town was. I imagine it actually being located. So there is a thing down there where you do eat. They serve them at these local hole in the wall places instead of, in lieu of like rolls or chips, they give you Vidalia onions and you eat those, but they're sweet.
Wait, that sounds like actually delicious.
Yeah, nothing more southern than that. I think it's with catfish.
Do we have questions or should I ask something, Kris? Okay, cool. I was wondering if you had like to pick one fun moment from filming the movie, what would it be? Like, do you have any memory that's like ingrained in your head and you're like, this is what I think about when I think of Sweet Home Alabama?
Yeah, for me, it was shooting on the water tower because that was a big deal. They had to actually bring that water tower in from somewhere, and they spent a lot of money on it and to get it all safe for us. And then they brought us up in a crane, and we shot at night, and you could look down at the town. I thought that was like the most, cool moment of the shoot for me.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was also one of the most precarious ones. We didn't find out about it being not original to the town. We're already making the climb from the cherry picker over the rusty railing, and trying to avoid the many holes and somewhat rickety construction of the thing. But it was quite an evening. It was quite an evening. We did manage to make sure that we had supplies with us. So you had grabbed yourself a whole bunch of stuff from craft service, loaded up the pockets. And if you had to go to the restroom, well, I was told to go out the backside of the tower so that no one could see. But I don't think anyone took them up on that offer.
Wait, that's so funny. That sounds like really fun. Here's a really random question, but I always like asking actors this. What's your crafty go-to?
My what?
Like the thing from craft services that's like, you gotta have it. Always.
Red vines.
Probably.
Gotta have red vines. That's like it isn't a movie if there isn't red vines.
Okay, interesting.
Oh, you like that?
Love it.
I like the granola bars. They got a little bit of everything in them. But craft service, man, they're wily. You're every day is like a smorgasbord. You have no idea what surprise they're gonna bring up.
You guys started talking about Southern food, and now I'm like, I want all the food.
Oh, we could talk food all day.
Okay, so I think now it's time for our second reading. Doug, Lana, and Alice will be joined by Helen Yoeman-Shaw. I'm butchering your name, Helen. Helen Yoeman-Shaw?
So this is Courtney. I'm sorry my video isn't working. I see it myself on here, but I just want to say to you guys, congratulations on your book. I hope it gets out there. I really liked the first reading. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys.
And thanks for coming on, guys.
Yeah, it was awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Good to see you.
Love the book. I'd love to narrate it too.
Hey, all right. Keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. That's all right, Gabby. It's Yeoman. Helen Yoeman-Shaw. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I hate Yeoman-Shaw. I hate.
Not the first. You won't be the last.
All right. So we ready to go over the second reading? So this picks up where the other one left off as Melanie's heading to the Pigeon Creek pageant. Mama drove her to the VA hall, host of the Pigeon Creek Princess pageant. Melanie let the scolding wash over her. She didn't need anyone to tell her how badly she'd messed up last night. People thought she didn't care about the chaos she caused. She cared, but it wasn't like she planned to muck everything up. Somehow it always just happened. She got a reprieve from the lecture once they arrived, on account of the dressing room was simply too small for anyone other than the contestants. Her mama caught her arm as she slipped through the door.
Melanie, I know you can do this. You're meant for better than this small town stuff, but you won't get chances like this forever. Don't waste it.
Melanie let the door close. Did her mama just actually say she believed in her? Sometimes it seemed like no one did. Even Jake only smiled and said, uh-huh, when she tried to talk about the future. He was sure they'd be together, but it was like he couldn't get his own mind beyond college football and her in the stands cheering him on. She turned and cringed at the bright overhead lights. The men's room had been turned into a temporary dressing room, so all the waiting mamas could still use the ladies' room. Someone had put bunches of fake flowers in the urinals and hung a couple of extra mirrors on the wall. Melanie wedged herself between Lurlin and Dorothea Buchanan.
Morning, Melanie.
Dorothea flashed a bright smile. Melanie grunted in response. Dang morning people, dang not hungover, not still drunk people. All the same, it was hard not to like Dorothea. The cheerful girl leaned close to the mirror and put on her sparkly blue eyeshadow.
Wasn't sure we were going to see you this morning. From what I heard, Felony Melanie had quite the little adventure last night.
News traveled fast at Pigeon Creek.
Is that what you heard?
At least blushing brought some color to Melanie's cheeks.
I'm just saying, is all. Oh, I also heard the moonshiner's cabin burned down last night. Not that I'm suggesting there's any connection.
She winked and turned away to wrestle her evening gown out of its plastic dry cleaner bag. Melanie winced at the frothy mass of peach ruffles and bows. Dorothea's husky body type, she was over 200 pounds, would have benefited even more than Melanie's from a more modern style. But maybe Melanie's mama was right, and the judges wouldn't see it that way. Anyway, Dorothea had talent and wit. She never won a pageant, but she often placed in the top 5, so who was Melanie to question her choices? Lurlin leaned on the sink as if she couldn't stand up without support. She looked about how Melanie felt, her skin too pale, her eyes bloodshot with raccoon circles around them.
You and Clinton make it home okay last night?
Yeah. Clinton insisted on walking me to the door.
If her smile didn't quite light up her face, at least it attempted a weak glow.
Oh?
Melanie bobbed her eyebrows and elbowed Lurlin in the side.
No, nothing like that. He had to race home, and he still missed his curfew. Hope his mama lets him work on that car with Jake and Eldon.
The car was an old Pontiac Grand Prix the guys had bought at a junkyard for $100 and were fixing up to race in the Pigeon Creek Demolition Derby next month. It would take a lot of fixing up.
Hope they're in better shape than we are this morning. Worst that could happen here, we turn an ankle or make fools of ourselves in front of the whole town. They get stupid. They could drop an engine on someone.
Melanie opened her makeup case and glanced in the mirror. Lurlin may have looked like Melanie felt, but Melanie looked like she'd died, been buried, and someone dug her up again. Even the caked-on makeup needed for the beauty pageant stage might not cover the circles under her eyes.
Ugh, I might as well forfeit now.
Oh, honey, please. I seem to recall it was you who won Miss Catfish pageant last year, and the Miss Tire Tread pageant 2 years ago, and the Little Miss Tire Tread pageant.
Twice.
And the County Fair teen pageant back in June.
I didn't win the county fair pageant. I was runner-up. Betty Willow from Greenville won.
And then she got pregnant and couldn't fulfill her duties, so you were the county fair princess.
But Jolene wins as often as I do, and you have that awesome new routine, Lurlin. And we all know Dorothea blew everyone away on the phone interviews, like always. Any of us could win.
Right. So don't give up before you even get started.
Besides, whoever wins today gets to compete in the Southern Regional over in Mobile. Wouldn't that be exciting?
So exciting. The Mobile pageant would last 2 days. Think of all that time in the big city. She could sneak away to visit some of the fancy dress shops, see the latest trends for herself. Fashion magazines were great and all, but they didn't compare to holding a dress in your hand, seeing how it was made, maybe even trying it on, if she could get up the nerve to pretend she was someone with money. Not to mention the chance of meeting that designer. What would she say to him? Melanie imagined shaking his hand. Would he look at her like she was backwoods white trash, or would he see that she was meant for something more? Maybe Dorothea was right. She could win this pageant. She had to win this pageant. Melanie took a deep breath to clear her head and set to work on her makeup. She added one more application of eye drops that promised to reduce redness. She blotted her eyes with tissues, gently pulled down her bottom lashes, and ran white eyeliner along the inner rim. That was supposed to make eyes look radiant. She was hoping for awake and sober. 20 minutes later, Melanie stood in the wings. A couple of movable partitions blocked off the sides of one end of the big room. The area between had been designated as the stage. This pageant began with the evening gown competition. One of the organizers decided it took too long for girls to get into their evening gowns. if they staged that part later. They also combined the evening gown portion with the introductions. Each girl entered the stage, introduced herself, turned in a circle, and curtsied. Easy enough, usually. Melanie watched Dorothea spin out on the stage. Melanie's head spun in response. She closed her eyes and clutched the edge of the partition to steady herself. The partition shifted a good 6 inches. Melanie wobbled, caught her balance, and froze in place. Pull it together. You've done this 1,000 times. Think of Mobile. Think of that big New York designer. Her turn. She straightened as if a string rose from her belly through her head and into the sky. With a deep breath, she walked out and flashed the crowd her best pageant smile. Even her dentist didn't get to see this many teeth. She gave the audience a cupped hand wave as she walked center stage and did a turn. Melanie shifted into her pageant voice, a hint of southern lilt, but proper grammar and precise diction.
I'm Melanie Smooter, 16 years old, from Pigeon Creek, Alabama.
As if y'all didn't already know that. The next part was harder. She had to say something about herself, and she couldn't fudge it since everybody knew her. She and Lurlyn had worked out for hours on this, giggling the whole time. But in the end, even Melanie's mama approved it.
I'm always a girl on the go, working my hardest to leave my mark on my community.
A few chuckles came from the audience. What? Her statement was the honest to God's truth.
I love fashion, football, and I aim to make my hometown proud one day.
By getting the heck out of there and showing what a Pigeon Creek girl could do in the real world. She smiled, waved, and curtsied. Her ankle wobbled in her high heel. That alone could lose her points. Melanie straightened and walked smoothly from the stage. The dress her mama made her wear had a low hemline, so maybe no one noticed her bobble. Her face hurt from smiling. Her eyes felt wide and plastic, like a Kewpie doll's. Finally, she reached the wings on the far side of the stage. She dropped her smile, blew out a breath, and collapsed in a heap. First challenge complete. She slumped against the wall to rest her eyes while the remaining girls introduced themselves. They had to stay in their gowns while the judges tallied the scores so the winners could come out again when Mr. Abernathy, the owner of the tire factory, announced the best in the event. Normally, Melanie scored highly in the evening gown, but had the judges caught the bobble? Had she been as poised as she thought? Mr. Abernathy read the names one by one. Jolene Quigg got third. Tammy Cooper got second. Melanie held her breath. She'd either won or not placed at all. If she didn't make the top 3 in evening gown, the rest of the pageant got way harder. First place, Melanie Smooter. Melanie let out a little whoop and covered it quickly. Maybe she could pull this off after all. The medal for winning the category was a cheap piece of plastic, but it was the first step towards the real prize, a trip to the big city. All right, so we'll continue that a little later. Kris said that she had some questions online for Courtney and Fleet, if you guys are still around and up for that.
Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to monitor the questions on my phone and keep the Zoom on my computer, but apparently some of the questions don't show up on the phone that show up on the computer. So Howard Hurd asked, did you like the music in the movie?
Well, Sweet Home Alabama itself was a song that for some reason always meant something to me. I'd always, when it says turn it up, Leonard Skinner, I'd always turn it up. So somehow I knew that we were going to have that song in my future somehow. And then when I saw Patrick Dempsey for the first time, I said, Can't Buy Me Love was a title track song. And now you got one, Sweet Home Alabama, you're going to blow up again, son. And he sure did. So.
Yeah, it's been following me for the last 20 years. So, most of the time it's a really great, at a great moment too, but it always recharges you when you hear it. And it's an automatic door into all these memories that come flooding back from the production, the people you met, and
had to learn the 2-step, which that was kind of interesting for me.
Yeah, the 2-step that we spent several weeks learning and being taught it, and then we had to throw it out the window.
I actually have a kind of a funny story about the song as well. I went to my high school reunion, and when I walked in, they started playing Sweet Home Alabama. So
wow, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thrill, and I still get people coming up to me and saying what a wonderful, it's their favorite movie, or it's one of their favorite movies, and it's just it's definitely earned a warm place in a lot of people's hearts, which is a good thing to have. If you only do one film, I mean that's definitely one to have. So I've been very proud of it. Since the time it came out to now, and still am, actually.
Sure still plays on TV a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah. We'll sit and watch it for like 5 minutes or so, just to have the memories coming. Oh, I remember that day. That was a cold day. Yeah.
Okay, and another question from Hallie Freeman is, what is a role being played now that if you could play, you would?
A role being played now? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess maybe the question is just, is there a role, like a dream role or something that you would like to play or be in?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about being an actor. There's sometimes there are roles that you're just waiting to grow into. I've always had a soft spot for George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I've loved that show for 25 years now. I've been wanting to play it, but always been too young. But eventually one day. I'll also like to go back and do some Shakespeare again. Cut my teeth doing that back in the early days, on the boards, as it were. Learn how to sword fight the whole 9 yards. It was a blast.
So many great actors have already done this, but I wouldn't mind taking a crack at the Joker one day. That'd be fun.
Yeah, why not? Or do something near the beach. I'm ready for a beach show. Something where I once did an outdoor drama for a summer because all the actors' bungalows were all on the beach, and I said that's the only reason I want to do it.
Location.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more question from Hallie. Did you know that the film was a student-written film when you took the role? Did you know that now?
I didn't know that.
No. We also were very fortunate too, because just to take it back, I started auditioning for this thing about 2 weeks after 9/11, and it was during the course of the actual first few weeks of filming in late October. I was just walking up, just grateful as hell to have a job. And learning from one of the producers, she told me that apparently we were one of only 8 productions that were in the country that were being filmed post 9/11, like immediately after that. So there was a lot of people out of work, as many of us, many of you all, I'm sure, recall. But I never stopped being grateful for that. Ever.
Well, hey, Doug, how did that come to pass that you were able to get that script put out there while you were still a student?
So it was actually my master's thesis script from USC. I was in the graduate screenwriting program. So it was, I graduated already, but it had been my master's thesis script. And Neil Morris, who produced the movie, had actually liked an action script of mine better, but he couldn't get it set up. So he asked what else I had, and I had this romantic comedy, and that wasn't necessarily his cup of tea so much, but Stokely Chafin, who is probably the producer you just mentioned, that she was a young woman from Alabama and kind of really responded to it and said, well, hey, can I work with you on it and try to get it set up? So it was really my first thing that I had ever done, and it kind of paid off in a big way, although it took a number of years from that point on to getting made. So.
Wow.
Yeah. There was a scene that got cut out that I was really sad that didn't make it. That we never got to shoot. Do you think you know which scene that is?
I don't.
It has to do with the airplane.
No. What is the scene?
There is a scene in there where we were going to be like water skiing behind the damn thing.
Yes.
But they couldn't find a river long enough. Not that we could probably get on the skis, man. I would have been terrified, but I sure wanted to do it.
Yeah, I actually think the airplane stuff came from C.J. Cox, who did a draft of the script as well.
Okay. Was that one of his?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I talked to him briefly at the premiere, and he was telling me that he was fighting tooth and nail to keep that scene in, but
Yeah.
eventually
I remember.
got the color, the new
I
color.
remember that scene. I think, that all the airplay stuff with him. That was a funny scene for sure. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, I would have loved to have tried that. I would have loved to have tried it. But the location they had for the river was actually a giant pond, so there was just no way to do it, apparently.
I imagine that plane covers ground pretty fast. It covers water pretty fast when it gets going.
Oh yeah. So what can you do? I think it would have been beautiful. Well, it certainly sounds like you guys got yourself your hands kind of full here with this new book coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's going to come out? You think it's going to hopefully get picked up and be made into a film?
I'd like that. I don't have anything to announce in that regard yet, but
It takes time.
Yeah.
A TV show would be okay too.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah,
we are
you
writing a
could,
series,
I love that.
Especially now, 10 episodes.
This is like
Season's getting so short now. You can fit them in.
Yeah.
So another question from Howard is, when you were shooting, did you expect the film to become a classic? Can you ever expect that?
Well, I thought with Disney behind it and all, I thought it had a real good chance to do well. And did I know it was going to be on TV as long as it's been almost 20 years? No, I can't say that. But I definitely had high hopes for it.
Yeah, the feedback I was getting was I have a lot of family in the South as well. And so, not just out of familial loyalty where they supported the film because I was a part of it, but I was getting reports back 9 months later that it was still playing in some theater somewhere, after its initial September 2002 opening, and apparently we held some sort of record for like the highest grossing rom-com or comedy released in the month of September, and we held that for at least a good 10 years, I think, until something else finally made it.
It was we had the biggest opening of any movie in September for 10 years.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. I was very proud of that thing. Very proud of that thing.
Who beat you though?
I forgot. I did know it, and it slipped my mind because then I was like, oh, finally. Knocked from our perch,
I think it was an animated movie. I think maybe Hotel Transylvania may have been.
Okay, that's a really good movie. Valid. Yeah. I'll allow it.
Yeah. It's okay. The kids will love it. But the whole thing was a blast, and it still continues to be a nice, warm reminder of not just a great show, because it's an all-around good show, but so many fond memories just keep popping up every time I run into the title again here and then, or hear the song, or run into somebody. It's always been nothing but a positive experience for me. Happy you've been a part of it.
Okay, I think that is the last of the questions for the guys. There was one that I'm guessing maybe for Doug is when writing the book, did you have actors or muses in mind when writing it?
When writing the book or the film?
Well, I guess actually maybe they were asking about the film. It was not clear from the question, and now it sort of disappeared from the comment feed. It seems to only be showing me the last few comments, so I'm going on memory here. So answer however you want. Yeah,
well, I would say for the film, not really, actually. I know a lot of writers do picture certain actors in parts. I feel like that's a little dangerous because if you picture a really good actor doing the lines, all your lines sound great. So I like to kind of just hopefully it goes on its own. But for the book, of course, I'm imagining the actors from the movie. And I know it pretty well, but I did rewatch it a couple times to try to kind of imagine them. Including Courtney and Fleet, who you guys were on my mind as I was writing those characters. So.
Younger and thinner. Less gray.
Yeah. Well, they are in high school, so yeah.
Thank God.
We all.
That's the shape of our lives.
But Courtney, you may enjoy knowing that because your character became the sheriff, Doug had the idea of, we've got a little bit of a mystery in the story that Jake and his friends are trying to solve while Melanie's busy trying to win the pageant. And so he had the idea of making Wade be a little bit of a detective. So he's picking up on clues because that seemed to fit in with his adult character.
Yeah, I like that. Makes perfect sense. But of course, she'll end up solving the crime, not me. But still, makes sense.
All right.
So I have a few more questions for Doug and Kris. Doug, so you wrote the original script for the movie. What inspired you?
So I actually went to high school in a small town in Alaska, not Alabama, but the next letter up alphabetically, the next state alphabetically, but a small town in Alaska of about 28,000 people, Juneau, Alaska. And then when I came down to USC to go to film school, the USC student body is 35,000. So the university was actually bigger than my whole hometown. And, of course, when I went to school, we didn't have so much like Facebook and everything to keep in touch with all of that. So when you're a kid in a small town in Alaska, all you really know about like music and fashion, everything comes from MTV in that time. So I really felt like out of touch when I got down here. And I think I kind of tried to hide that and was a little embarrassed maybe about where I came from and tried to fit in with all the cool, LA kids. And when it came time, then by the time I got to grad school, it came time to write this film. I think I was sort of writing about that experience of, kind of trying to hide your past and then realizing you can't really run away from your past. You have to sort of embrace it, and it actually makes you stronger. I mean, it led to the movie. So it worked out well for me to embrace my past. And I think that's what I was really writing about. And maybe interesting, I didn't originally set it in Alabama. That was really Stokely Chafin's suggestion that Alabama would be a good place. And she gave me a lot of the information to make it feel very authentic at the time. And then, of course, there was research and all of that.
I think that worked out great. You ended up writing a classic, so iconic. What made you decide to write a book?
I just really, I guess coming across the movie again, somewhere along the way probably, but I started thinking about, like, it's really interesting that she has this reputation as Felony Melanie, and I just kind of wanted to see how, I thought that those characters in high school would be real fun, where they're, teenage troublemakers. I kind of thought of it as like a teenage Dukes of Hazzard, like with a girl and a boy, or maybe kind of Bonnie and Clyde, but not that violent. But kind of a teenage Dukes of Hazzard. I thought it would be kind of a fun series, and because I'd written the original script, I had the rights to do books and things. So I said, let me just do it, and then I called on my sister to give me a hand because she has more experience in that.
Yeah, so Kris, you've written a bunch of YA books. How did you get into that?
Well, there's a saying in children's literature that you write for the age that was sort of most formative to you. And we moved several times growing up. Before I went into sixth grade and Doug was a year older, we moved from Saudi Arabia to Colorado. And then 2 years after that, we moved to Alaska. And Doug was a little more outgoing and I think made friends more easily, but I was pretty shy at that age. So I really turned to books, and that was my refuge, for the time that it took me to start making friends. So when I began writing, I wanted to create the kind of adventure stories that I had loved when I was a young person. And since then, I've written for children, teenagers, adults, fiction and nonfiction. But one of the fun things about writing for young people is that they're figuring out the world, and they're figuring out their place in it and who they are going to be. And they can take chances and make mistakes that we might not do as an adult, or that we might look down on somebody making that mistake as an adult, but it's totally believable in a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old. So in Sweet Home Alabama, in the movie, Melanie makes some poor choices as an adult. And sometimes her character is not that likable. And I think it partly works in the movie because, Reese Witherspoon is just so darn charming that viewers can root for Melanie even when they may not approve of some of the things she does. Well, if you have a teenage character, in the book, she's 15. And so she has a lot of those characteristics you see as an adult. She just kind of barrels ahead sometimes, not necessarily thinking through the possible consequences of her actions. And that's a lot of fun when you have a young character doing that. And I think it's forgivable, even though you see her mess up and get into trouble and try to scramble her way out of it. We can love her for that and root for her. And then the book also gave us a chance to flesh out some of those secondary characters, so that if viewers loved Clinton or Eldon or Wade, or they're going to be in the book in a larger part. And we gave Melanie some girlfriends, which it didn't seem like she really had in the movie. We made those parts a little bigger. So it's fun, I think, to let teenagers make mistakes and have crazy times and somehow come out of it on the other end, just maybe a little bit smarter and a little bit better than they started out.
Do we have any more questions from the Facebook thingy?
There was one question: where did you do the pageant research? And I can say that from my experience, some of that was simply online, just looking up where, what the criteria are and what the events are and how kids get into pageants. Also, by a coincidence, when we were in high school in Alaska, Doug and I both worked theater stage crew for several years. And I happened to work backstage for the Junior Miss pageant. So I had that sort of personal experience of both seeing the girls on stage and sort of seeing how things worked behind the scenes. And I drew on some of that information for it. And I don't know if Doug has anything to add for that.
Yeah, I had no personal involvement with any pageants, but so we relied on Kris, and actually Lana, who was reading earlier, had some pageant experience and gave me some insights into that world a bit too.
So no toddlers and tiaras.
No, that was not a movie.
Listen, that was a great show. That was great entertainment. Okay, now we have our final reading from the book, right?
Yes, and this will just be me because it's all narration. There's no dialogue in this. So here we go, picking up the story where we left off. The girls headed back to the dressing room and changed for the talent competition. Melanie put on a red sequin tank top and shiny black pants with a sparkly silver stripe down the sides. She was unveiling a clogging routine choreographed to the song "The Devil Went Down to Georgia" by the Charlie Daniels Band. Melanie cheered from the wings as Lurlyn did her baton twirling routine. Dorothea sang a medley of patriotic songs. People actually got teary-eyed, and when she hit a section from the Star-Spangled Banner, everyone stood and placed their hands over their hearts. A hard act to follow. Melanie dragged in deep breaths, which was supposed to get oxygen in the blood or some such thing, and pictured herself winning, like Jake said the football players did before a game. The music started, and Melanie cartwheeled onto the stage. The audience cheered, but the great entrance set Melanie's head spinning again. She smiled at the blurry audience and let the music carry her. Her feet tapped, her hands clapped. She kicked and shuffled side to side and forward and back. Turns out, hours of practice really did pay off. Her mama had put her in classes when she was knee-high to a duck, so she'd have a chance in pageants. The audience clapped along, a good sign. The old folks always loved a lively clogging routine. Melanie punched her hands towards each corner of the room. Time for the first spin. Ugh, the hotcakes in her belly threatened to go airborne. She clenched her teeth together and swallowed hard. She had to make it through one more big twirl. Around she went. She stopped, facing the audience, 1 foot forward and arms out to the sides. Her head kept spinning like a tilt-a-whirl at the fair. She took an extra step. Melanie managed not to swear out loud. Her toe caught on something. She launched forward. No, no, no. She tucked and rolled into a somersault. As she came out of the somersault, she rose to one knee and spread her arms. She smiled, aiming for, ta-da, see my big finale? Problem was, the music kept right on playing. 1 or 2 people clapped awkwardly and trailed off. Melanie's vision cleared to show audience members exchanging puzzled glances. Melanie's mama leapt to her feet and clapped wildly as the song finally ended. The rest of the audience took the hint and joined in. But Melanie stole a peek at the judges. They scribbled furiously on their pads. Melanie rose, bowed, and kept her smile in place as she headed backstage. But it sure looked like she'd blown her chance at Mobile. It was only a silly old pageant, not the end of the world. Tears moistened her dry eyes. Truth was, she'd gotten her heart set on winning. She'd started to imagine the excitement, the opportunities. The price for yesterday's adventure was turning out steeper than she'd expected. It It was hard to cheer for the remaining contestants, though Melanie managed to clap as loud as anyone, never mind the weight of disappointment in her chest. Jolene finished off the talent portion by playing the spoons to Lynyrd Skynyrd's Sweet Home Alabama. That almost felt like cheating. The song choice did half the work for her. Melanie's best chance to get points back was in the next event, the sportswear competition, that took the place of swimsuit for the younger contestants. As always, Dorothea fell out of the running there. Judges just didn't score heavy girls highly in the evening gown and sportswear sections. Tammy Cooper stumbled during one of her dance moves. Melanie ended up with the highest score in the event and moved into second place overall behind Jolene. Melanie didn't have to fake her big grin this time. At last, the hangover was slinking away like that old copperhead finally did last night. She'd saved Jake from a snake. She could do anything. She was in striking distance of the crown with only the presentation section of the competition left. Tammy lost any chance when she got the question, "What is your favorite Alabama memory?" and answered with a story about visiting Dollywood, which of course was in Tennessee. If brains were dynamite, Tammy wouldn't be able to blow her nose. Jolene was up next, and when asked what one thing she would change about the world, gave an elaborate speech about ending war. Melanie shook her head. World peace was an easy answer, but it came off sounding bland and ordinary. Jolene would score well for her relatively composed response, but the judges wouldn't give the top marks for something so cliche. Melanie never memorized answers to potential questions. Her mama might call her lazy, but really, she did her best if she didn't think too far ahead. She strode out on stage, her hangover all but gone. The door was open for her to steal the victory and the trip to Mobile that came with it. She flashed a big smile and gave a friendly wave, imagining the New York designer out in the audience. Mr. Abernathy drew a question out of the fishbowl. "Melanie Smooter, what is your favorite thing about Pigeon Creek?" That question guaranteed to appeal to the local judges. Melanie opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She stood there, staring at the judges' table, mouth half open and mind blank. She couldn't think of one good thing about Pigeon Creek. Uh-oh. And that's the end of chapter 3, and for the rest, get the book.
And I did just add the links to the Facebook feed for the book purchases, and also a link to sign up for our newsletter and get the first 2 chapters, which stand alone as a short story. And we did get a couple more questions. If anybody asks a question and I'm not getting to it, I apologize. It's only letting me see about 5 most recent comments, so it's possible some got missed. But other questions are, how was it writing as a brother-sister team, which I think I already addressed. I don't know if Doug wants to disagree with my statement.
Well, no, I think one of the advantages is, of course, like I know this world pretty well, and Kris knows how to write this kind of prose much better than me, so our strength and weaknesses complement each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that is true on the business side of things as well, that we can kind of go back and forth and figuring out how to make all the different pieces of this happen. Another question was, at what stage in this process do you guys start shopping this as a film or TV property, if you can reveal?
I don't know if we can reveal that.
Good answer.
Yeah, I would say probably very soon, but beyond that, I don't know if I can be too specific without, we have a strategy, and I don't want to reveal the strategy publicly until we do it. So.
Oh God. Okay. I'm intrigued now. Do we have more questions?
Okay, very excited that you included the white eyeliner on this is the waterline trick in the book. Was that Doug's contribution or Kris's? Just asking because Doug's eyes do look more fabulous than usual, says Cindy Davis. Actually, I think I came across that in research. I think I was looking up early 90s makeup in general, just because, this is set in 1993. So looking back at pictures of prom dresses of the time and pageant winners of the time and makeup and hairstyles and so forth, I came across that somehow, that the white eyeliner is supposed to make your eyes pop. And that's all the questions that I'm seeing.
Okay, so thank you all for coming. This has been so much fun. The book releases tomorrow. You can pre-order it for your Kindle or any electronics. Your copies will be delivered tomorrow. You can also get a paperback, and the links for everything are in the thread. Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.